I'm the Vice Chair, Louise Fluker. I'm also Chair of the Planning Committee. This is what we do. Last year, you may recall that we didn't make an award, which is the big ceramic round object. We only made commendations, so you'll have to wait in suspense to see what we're doing this year. And the purposes of the awards are self-explanatory. You can see it on the screen, so I'm not going to read it out for you. And the process, which I think you're probably familiar with now, is that we ask members to nominate projects or buildings or whatever it happens to be. The Planning Committee then reviews it. We then do a walkabout with the Executive Committee of the Society, and we make our decisions on commendations or an award. We don't commend or indeed award everything. We do go and look at a variety of things. So two that we looked at were, first of all, Sticks and Sushi, which I don't know how many people have actually been in it, but this is the first phase of 80 George Street, formerly House of Fraser, that's opened. And the second one is the old print works, which is tucked away down Water Lane. And unless you peered closely, you probably wouldn't notice it, but it's been derelict for probably 20 years. And in fact, in 2003, Richmond Council issued an enforcement order on the owners to do remedial work. And the before picture is on the left, fairly obviously. And on the right is the work that's been done so far, which is at least tidying it up so it looks slightly better. We were going to have a talk after the award ceremony this evening from the enforcement officer of Richmond Council, because we're often asked, why doesn't Richmond Council do something about Doughty House or the Wick, etc., etc.? And Craig was going to talk us through the process, but unfortunately his mother was taken seriously ill this morning, so he's had to go to Cardiff. So we'll have to get him back. Now, the good news from that point of view is that that will shorten the evening, so you can have more time to have a drink. Or alternatively, go to the lecture on German Expressionism. Some people wandered in thinking that's what they were getting here. So if anybody is expecting to hear about German Expressionism, you need to go downstairs. Right, well, these were the nominations that we had. Aphrodite's Fountain, which is better known as Bulbous Betty in Terrace Gardens, the Roebuck on the top of Richmond Hill, Richmond Station. You might think we've gone mad because Richmond Station is now covered with tarpaulins and scaffolding and so forth, but you will have seen before that it has changed its appearance considerably. The Richmond charities who run the various almshouses in the borough for their solar panel project, and Explore, which is formerly Eaton House at the top of Eaton Street. So the first one is a commendation for Bulbous Betty. And it's nice to be able to celebrate something that has been done by teams from the borough, because I think everybody knows that local councils are short of money, and finding spare cash to restore features in the borough is, they probably have to fight quite hard for the money. So it's nice to be able to celebrate when they do something. So let's have a look at Bulbous Betty. Well, on the left was before, and on the right was after. And what the Parks and Facilities Management team have said is that they worked together to renew the fountain plumbing, the fountain signage and surrounding planting. The previous lavender, whilst attractive, was deciduous and causing the fountain's plumbing to become obstructed. I have to say, when I went past it at one stage, it looked as if it was completely weed-bound and seized up, but that's by the way. Anyway, they continued. They made the decision to remove the lavender and put in lower-level planting of Bergenias and mixed spring crocus, which allows a more open view of Betty, aka Aphrodite. A new aquatic planting scheme has been added under the statue, and that's well established, and they are adding a selection of house leeks to the surrounding raised beds. And the idea is that it'll offer year-round floral interest and also be drought tolerant, which you might think is odd considering it's a fountain, but so, perhaps the Parks Department of Richmond Council might like to come up and receive their certificates. So if you'd like to... Doesn't matter, they can sort it out between themselves.
I'll take them. Take all of them, yes. Many congratulations and very well done. Thank you.
Take the other one. Yes.
Okay. Any photographs?
So that should encourage everybody to go and take a walk in terrace gardens. People seem very sensitive about Aphrodite being called Bulbous Betty. I've never quite known why. It seems to me a very appropriate description. But anyway. Right. Now the next one is the Roebuck, which is a Green King pub. And if I show some slides, this is what it looks like now. I mean, obviously, it's been there for a couple of hundred years, so it's gone through a number of incarnations. But this is the latest one, and I think probably most people thought it was looking a bit tired beforehand. So there it was before. And this is what their mission was, if you like, in terms of their development. Basically, I think they're saying that they want to preserve the traditional whilst updating things, and that they wish to reclaim, revive, and restore before they replace, which obviously makes a lot of sense from an environmental point of view. So, is anybody from the Roebuck here? Ah, excellent. So would Team Roebuck or Team Green King like to come up? Just one, so just they can sort out which ones they want themselves. Actually, I shortchanged them because, my apologies to Green King, because these were some photos that they supplied, but again, gives you an idea of before and after. Right, well, the next one is Richmond Station facade. It's the gateway to the town for many visitors. It's a splendid example of Art Deco architecture. Its architect was James Robb Scott, and he designed Wimbledon and Surbiton stations. And Surbiton Station is Grade 2 listed and was some 40 years ago. I think despite the efforts of Paul Vellaway, I don't think efforts to list Richmond Station, they've so far fallen on deaf ears, which is a shame. It had got into a terrible state, and it really, I think, it was appalling, and it was totally unworthy both of the building and of the town. But in a joint project of Network Rail, South Western Railway, the Railway Heritage Trust, and I'm also pleased to say Richmond Council, which has chipped in £100,000 for the project. Phase 1 has been completed. Now, you might think I'm talking complete rubbish because the building is encased in scaffolding and sheeting and so forth. But if you have been observant for the past few weeks, you would have noticed a complete transformation. So this is, before it was put under wraps again, is what it looks like. That's what it looked like before. The first phase, which has been done, has involved cleaning the Portland stone facade, repairing the timber entrance doors and polishing the bronze work, and the bronze doors look absolutely fabulous, repairing the flagpoles and refurbishing customer lavatories. And in order to do all this, the station's original hand-drawn plans have been used, together with promotional photographs from when the station was first opened. I mean, obviously, a complete set of drawings probably doesn't exist, but samples of the station's original paint have been analysed by the University of Lincoln, and they're specialists in the conservation and restoration of interior and exterior features of listed buildings. So this shows you how seriously the railway team has taken this project. If I show you some more photos, again, this is before, looking pretty miserable. And on the left-hand side was the stairs going down from the concourse platforms on the left, and on the right is how they appear now. And I think, but I'm sure the railway fraternity will correct me, that the green paint represented the original colours of Southern Railway before it was nationalised in 1947, and Southern Region as it became. And it's appropriate for me to say a great word of thanks to Peter Hendy, because before he was whisked off to become a minister for railways, or for the rail, in the current government, he was, of course, chairman of Network Rail. And he may be more familiar to people in Richmond because of his route master buses, which he drives for charities, including us. And I think he put his considerable heft behind getting this project done, and so we're very grateful to him. It is phase 1, and there are more phases projected. And at the end of that, who knows what the station will look like, but it will be an approximation probably of its former glory. And this is what South Western Railway said. The schemes opened our eyes and minds to the possibilities and benefits of sensitive restoration of heritage features where it's possible. Many thanks to Network Rail, the London Borough of Richmond upon Thames, and the Rail Heritage Trust, who have contributed financially to enable the next phase of work to go ahead. And this is the canopy restoration, and that will complete in early 2025. So my guess is that the canopy restoration is what they're doing at the moment. And they say that they hope to continue with some further restoration of heritage features within the booking hall, subject to available funding and approvals. So, railway team, would you like to come up? Yep. Well, they can sort it. That's South Western Railway. So, just this gentleman here.
So that's South Western Railway.
South Western Railway for this gentleman.
Thank you.
This one for the Railway Heritage Trust. And this one for the architect. Right. Well, last year, as I mentioned before, we didn't actually award or make the award, which is a big round plaque, which you can see up there. And a bit like number 9 buses, they come along in a convoy. So there is more than one this year. But the first one is for the Richmond Charities for their solar panel installation project. And by way of background, although I'm sure most of you know this, they now comprise a variety of individual charities that were almshouses that were set up over the past 300 or 400 years. So they've housed and supported elderly people for over 400 years. The first of the almshouses was Queen Elizabeth's Almshouses, founded in 1600, and then various wealthy benefactors endowed land and property. And so the Richmond Charities now owns and runs 140 almshouses spread over 10 estates in Richmond and Twickenham. Now, last year we commended them for the Queen Elizabeth Almshouse project. This year they've completed work on Bishop's Duppus and Hublon and are about to start on Hickey. And they're, I think, probably about 2/3 of the way through the, if not further, through the project, which will be that all their almshouses have solar panels. And given that the buildings, for the most part, are listed, and the balance between preserving the historic character of the building and its fabric and its appearance, but at the same time improving it, not least for the residents, is a very sensitive one. And Clive Chapman were the architects appointed by the Richmond Charities to sort this conundrum out. And we felt this year that although the project is not completely finished, but it's well on its way to being finished, and that it really deserved the big one, so to speak, because it was reflecting concern for the environment, sensitive treatment of listed buildings, and it, if you like, shows the way that other organizations, or indeed individuals, can go. So, let me show you some photographs. Now this was, I always get these ones mixed up, but it's really just trying to illustrate the innovative ways in which they've installed the solar panels. Where there's a parapet, they can hide the panels behind, so you don't see them unless you look very, very carefully from the street. But in other places, they've created a pergola and put panels on top of the pergola, or at the side, as you can see on the picture on the right. And again, these are just illustrations of what they've been doing. And on the right, you'll see the pergola. If I'm peering, it's because I'm looking at a screen which is much smaller up there than the one that you're looking at. So I don't have to turn around, is the theory. Anyway, Richmond Charities team, would you like to come up, please? Yes. Now, if you like to give it to... Right, this is for Clive Chapman. This is for the Richmond Charities. And this is for SD Construction. Well, I think the Richmond Charities need to fight between them as to who's going to... Thank you. Right, well, I said that, like number 9 buses, things come along in twos. This one is, I think, going to be controversial, to say the least. However, the award goes to what was formerly Eaton House, but is now Explore, which is at the top of Eaton Street. And this was a development by Barwood Capital, who appointed Moorvale Capital as their development manager and Darling Associates as their architects. The original building, well, I'll go to what it looked like before so you can remind yourselves, was a 1980s building, and I think it had probably by most views outlived its useful life, and it really looked a mess. The redevelopment involved what's called a full back-to-frame refurbishment. So in other words, they didn't just demolish the whole building and start again. They used the framework, took it back to the framework. Now, the controversial bit probably is the addition of an extra floor, which I know that members of this society didn't approve of. And it is one of the great dilemmas in how do you preserve the vibrancy of a town so that it continues to develop and attract people who want to come and work here without changing the character. On aesthetics, I think there are again going to be differing views as to whether the new building, which I go back to, it's what it looks like now, is an improvement or not. Everybody will have their own opinion. What we felt on balance, and as I say, this is somewhat controversial, so it was a matter of some debate, was that the new building did merit an award because people felt that it was more in harmony with the surrounding area, and more importantly, it had environmental advantages. If anybody's wandered past, you'll have seen that there's a garden and greenery. And apart from the additional floor on top, which is, as you can see, is set back, I can play with the laser thing. There's a roof terrace, there are extensive common areas, a garden, amenity space, 45,000 square foot of office space, And the building is targeting BREEAM Excellent, which is, I think I'm right in saying, the highest qualification for environmentally friendly buildings. And it's intended to be net zero in operation and with an EPC A rating. There are measures to support energy efficiency and biodiversity, and they include enhancing the greening and planting opportunities in both the common areas and the private spaces. And there's electric vehicle charging and also 42 cycle parking spaces. I suspect not every member of the audience would view lots of cycles as being a benefit, but that's another matter. There's also a communal lounge, a gym, changing rooms and showers. And the project has secured Wired Score Gold. I'm afraid I couldn't tell you what that means in any more detail. And it is targeting Fitwel accreditation. And so perhaps a few more pictures. Well, that's a reminder of what it looked like before. And again, views of before. And these are some different views after, and you'll see the sort of greenery and so forth. And more greenery. So, Team Explore, would you like to come up to the rostrum, please? Right. I think probably to the gentleman in the middle.
Okay, right.
Right, Moorvale.
Thank you very much.
Darling.
Cool, you know what?
And Barwood Capital, who financed it. Well, this probably will count as one of the shortest meetings ever held by the Richmond Society, because the next part of the evening was going to be a presentation by the enforcement officer, as I've said, but unfortunately he's unable to join us because his mum's ill. And I haven't the temerity to run through his slides on behalf of Richmond's enforcement team. So, I think what I will do is, unless anybody's got any questions or observations they'd like to make. Well, obviously you don't want to have your drinking time cut into. So, rather than delay things any longer, it gives me great pleasure to ask the Deputy Mayor if he'd like to say a few words, and also to thank him on your behalf for coming along this evening and presenting the awards.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I wanted just to thank Louise Fluker for the lovely introduction. I just noticed there that she mentioned that the Council's enforcement officer couldn't be here, so I'm in his place. Quite a daunting prospect, but don't worry. There's another reason why I feel a little bit unfortunate this evening, and that's because I believe the only thing in the way of you having some drinks is my little speech. So I'll be as brief as I can. But anyway, no. Thank you to the Richmond Society for the great work that they do. I'm aware of the commitment that they have to do the best that they can for the London Borough of Richmond. And we in the Council, thoroughly recognise the contribution that they make. I believe this society has been running for more than 65 years. And it's been striving, campaigning for all these years to preserve what's really, really important in terms of the heritage and history of Richmond itself. The world is changing, and it's changing at an ever faster pace. And I concur with the missions and the ideals that Richmond Society has in its views on town plannings and buildings, finding that balance between making a positive contribution to the local environment, but at the same time preserving the unique character that Richmond itself has as a town. We need to be also very mindful of the natural environment and how important climate change is, and any developments, any work that's done should bear that in mind in thinking about not just the short term, but the medium and longer term as well. So, as we're talking about things that are important and keeping Richmond's profile the way that it is, some of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware, but I think it's important that we mention this. Richmond, as a council, we are very, very proud of the accolade that we received earlier this year. And in the independent newspaper, back in January this year, there was a survey published which cited Richmond as the #1 place to live in the whole of the UK. So that's something you should all be very proud of as well. So I hope that's that's good enough reason for Richmond Society to carry on the great work that it does. We in the council want Richmond to continue to be the place that people want to choose as the place to live, work, and visit, and long may that continue. Now, just a few words about Richmond Society itself. I do understand that they are non-political, as neutral as possible, and it's all about doing the work that they can to improve the lives of the local residents and visitors to Richmond itself. It's a charity and funded only by subscriptions and donations, and I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank all the volunteers for the great work that they do as well. I know Richmond Society also put through many events throughout the year, and as a borough, we need to do as much as we can to promote the excellent work that the Richmond Society does. So I'll end on the note of saying congratulations and huge commendations for the work, for all the winners, for what they've done, and we do genuinely recognise the contribution that you've made. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. Good evening.
That's fine. Right, well, I will do a quick zip through the slides that aren't going to be presented before telling you about our next event. We didn't want to ask any questions, so I've skipped over that. Our next event is on the 14th of November, and we're back at the Adult College. And this we've called a forum on topical issues. And what we're taking a slightly different approach. Richmond Society has over 1,000 members, but within the borough there are other amenity groups. And what we thought we'd do would be to invite some of the other groups to come along, because there are bound to be areas that are of common interest, whether it's Heathrow, aeroplane, flight paths, town centre, crime, etc., etc. And we thought it would be a useful occasion to bring different societies together so that members could hear what the concerns were of neighbours in Kew or Barnes or whatever it is. And so far, I've received a positive response from fellow societies. So what we'll be doing is that on the 14th. And if you've got ideas or you've got things that you think really should be aired, well then please get in touch and let me know so that we can address those, because a society is for its members. I mean, we exist for you, and it's up to you to tell us if you think we're on the right tracks, or alternatively, if we're not on the right tracks, or if you think there are issues that we should be addressing which we aren't, or we're wasting too much time on other things. So up to you folks, but I hope you'll come. And finally, and as I say, this must be the shortest Richmond Society meeting, apart from thanking all our visitors, and in particular the Deputy Mayor and Mayoress. I'd also like to thank the volunteers who make these events possible. So Lizzie and her team of volunteers, a big hand to you. Thank you very much. And enough from me, so you can now attack the booze table.